I never thought a greeting card would be the thing that made me question my entire marriage. Not an argument, not a confession, just a card. Plain white, tucked in a suitcase with a message that didn't belong to me. It was a Tuesday around 6 in the evening. I remember because I was standing in the kitchen slicing onions for the chili Jenna said she was craving. She had been out of town for the past 4 days attending some real estate conference in Houston. Nothing unusual, she's in sales and travel is just part of the job. I've always been proud of how ambitious she is. We'd even joked about how much more she made than me now after that big promotion she landed last fall. It never bothered me. If anything, I admired it. The plan was she'd be flying back Wednesday afternoon, so when I heard the front door open a day early, I wasn't prepared. At all. "Hey, babe," she called out like it was totally normal to surprise your husband by showing up 24 hours ahead of schedule. I turned from the counter, knife still in hand, and saw her standing there in her travel clothes, tight jeans, blazer, heels still on, and this wide, dazzling smile on her face. Like the kind you give someone when you've just come home with good news. "You're home?" I asked, doing a double take. "Yeah, I switched my flight. Finished early and figured why not come home to my favorite guy." She walked over, gave me a kiss that was maybe a little too light for someone who hadn't seen me in 4 days, and dropped her bag by the stairs. The thing is, Jenna's a planner. She doesn't just switch flights. She likes structure, bullet points, lists. So even in that moment, something inside me went off. I pushed it down. People can be spontaneous, right? It's not a crime. While she disappeared upstairs to shower, I stayed behind in the kitchen, trying to refocus. I was stirring the beans into the pot when I remembered she'd mentioned needing her phone charger earlier that week. Figured I'd be helpful and grab it from her suitcase. Her bag was still by the stairs, half unzipped. I reached in, past the wrinkled blouse and a half-eaten protein bar, and that's when I saw it, a small, velvety black box. Not thinking much of it at first, I picked it up and flipped it open. Inside was a sleek, obviously expensive men's watch. Silver band, black dial, probably $300 minimum, maybe more. I'm not a watch guy, but I know quality when I see it. Underneath it was a card. Plain, white, folded once, no envelope. "You shine when you wear this. B." Just like that, Tom stopped. I stared at the handwriting for what felt like an hour. My first thought was, who the hell is B? My second thought was, why the hell is my wife carrying around a man's watch with a romantic message? I carefully closed the box and slid everything back exactly where it was. Then I sat on the bottom stair and just stared. At nothing in particular. I could hear the water running upstairs and my brain was running with it, full speed, no brakes. I told myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. There had to be. She's not the cheating type. She's never been shady. Not once. We've been married 6 years, together for 8. We built a life together, one brick at a time. She knows my parents, bakes cookies with my niece, rubs my back when I'm too stressed to sleep. That Jenna wouldn't do this. But this Jenna came home a day early without saying a word, kissed me like a neighbor she barely knew, and brought a watch from B. The water stopped upstairs. I jumped up, heart pounding, and darted back into the kitchen like I hadn't just stumbled across the most jarring piece of evidence in my married life. A few minutes later, she came down wearing a robe and that wet hair towel thing she always does after a shower. She looked relaxed. Too relaxed. "Dinner smells amazing," she said, stepping behind me to wrap her arms around my waist. "I missed you." I tried to play it cool. "You said the conference ended tomorrow." "Yeah, it did. Well, technically. But we wrapped things up early. The last days always fluff anyway, motivational speakers and those weird icebreaker things. Figured I'd rather be home. You could have texted me." "Thought about it," she said, laughing as she grabbed a beer from the fridge. "But then I figured, why not surprise you?" She took a sip and leaned against the counter. I was trying not to watch her too closely, but something about her posture, the way she was smiling, it all felt just a little too curated. Polished. "So, did you win anything at this conference?" I asked, steering the conversation toward what I'd found. She raised an eyebrow. "Win anything?" "Yeah, I mean, you said they do all those goofy trivia things. Ever get anything cool?" Her eyes flickered just for a second. Then came the laugh, light, breezy, a little too fast. "Oh, yeah, actually. The team I was with won a trivia round. They had prizes, dumb stuff, really. Coffee gift cards, earbuds. Someone even got a watch. Like, who gives a watch as a prize, right?" My breath caught in my throat. "You got the watch?" "Yeah," she said, setting her beer down. "It's nothing fancy. Just one of those gimmicky things." They had a whole box of prizes to pick from. The watch was probably like a prop from some brand sponsor. "Why?" I shrugged, trying to keep my voice level. Just curious. You never really bring stuff home from these things. She didn't answer right away. Then she stepped forward, kissed me on the cheek, and said, I know I was gone a few days, but you don't have to be suspicious. I promise, it was all work and very boring. That last part came out too smoothly. Too rehearsed. She changed the subject almost immediately, launching into a story about how the Houston hotel's hot water stopped working the first night and how one of her coworkers had a meltdown about it. I nodded, smiled, even laughed at the right times. But all I could hear was that sentence playing on a loop in my mind. You shine when you wear this. B. Whoever B was, he wasn't just some coworker offering coffee shop banter. The tone of the message, it wasn't casual. It was admiring. An asterisk, mate. And that watch wasn't a goofy trivia prize. It was real. Heavy. The kind of gift you give with meaning. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Jenna snored softly beside me. Her arm was draped across my chest like nothing had changed, like everything was still okay. And maybe it was. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe someone from the office had an extra watch and thought, hey, Jenna would like this. Maybe B stood for boss or Brent or Brenda. But I didn't believe that. Not really. There's a certain kind of lie that you don't even need to hear out loud to know it's real. You feel it in your bones, in the way a room suddenly feels colder, or how a kiss starts tasting unfamiliar. Something had shifted, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. I told myself I'd drop it. Just let it go. Trust her. That's what you do in a marriage, right? You trust. You don't become the guy who stalks his wife's every move because of one weird note in a suitcase. You don't tear down a decade of memories over a single luxury watch and a signature from B. But the thing about doubt is, it doesn't just sit quietly in your mind. It grows. It itches. It circles around everything you thought was solid and whispers, are you sure? The next morning, Jenna was back to her usual self. She made coffee. She folded laundry. She kissed me goodbye and told me she'd be home late because of a team debrief. If you'd watched us from outside, you'd think we were that couple. The solid, functioning, happy ones. But in my head, the picture had already started cracking. I didn't go snooping right away. That's not me. Or it wasn't me. But the thing is, once a seed like that is planted, everything starts looking like a sign. Every odd moment from the past few months began playing on a loop, only this time I viewed them through a different lens. I remembered how her phone used to buzz constantly in the evenings until one day it just didn't. At first, I thought maybe she just turned off notifications, but then I noticed she started keeping it on silent all the time, even at night. She used to leave it charging on the nightstand, but recently it stayed face down on the dresser, far out of reach. Then there was the perfume. A few weeks back, she'd come home later than usual, claimed she had dinner with a friend she hadn't seen in a while. But when she hugged me, she smelled different. Not bad, just unfamiliar. Something sharper, muskier. I asked her about it, jokingly even, and she said, oh, I sprayed a tester at the mall. And I remember thinking that was odd because Jenna hates shopping in person. She's an Amazon for everything girl. The mall? That's not her. And then God, I can't believe I forgot this, I found a receipt in her glove box about a month ago. It was from this high-end restaurant in Atlanta. Now, Jenna works remotely most days, but once or twice a month she goes into her Savannah office. That day, she told me she was in meetings all afternoon and grabbed lunch from the cafe downstairs. But the timestamp on the receipt was for dinner. 2 entrees. 1 bottle of wine. And not just any wine, Pinot Noir from a vineyard she and I once visited together in North Carolina. At the time, I told myself I was being ridiculous. Maybe she had a client meeting. Maybe the receipt belonged to someone else and it got mixed up. But now? After the card? After the watch? No. These weren't isolated events. They were pieces. And they were starting to click into place. That afternoon, I sat in my car outside my office with the receipt in one hand and my phone in the other, scrolling through our shared calendar. She hadn't logged anything for that day. No meetings, no travel. Just WFH. Work from home. So why was she in Atlanta? Why did she lie? I'll tell you something else that stuck with me. About 3 weeks ago, she came to me and said she wanted to restructure some things financially. At the time, I didn't think much of it. We were refinancing part of the mortgage and she casually mentioned putting more of it under her name for tax reasons. Said her accountant buddy from college had suggested it. Jenna handles most of our paperwork, so I didn't argue. I even joked that if we split up, I'd better get visitation rights for the kitchen island. She laughed. I laughed. Now that conversation felt like a smoke signal I ignored. A red flag I joked my way past. And the guilt? That hit harder than I expected. Not hers, mine. Because I started realizing how many times I'd chosen not to see what was right in front of me. Little moments that felt off but I brushed aside because, what? Because I loved her? Because I didn't want to be that guy? Because it's easier to pretend everything's fine than admit you might be living with a stranger? By Thursday, I couldn't stop the spiral. My work performance dropped. I'd start typing emails and forget what I was writing halfway through. I avoided my coworkers, skipped lunch, stared at Jenna's texts like they were written in a foreign language. Everything felt like a code I couldn't crack. That night, we had dinner together. She made pasta, wore leggings and one of my old college hoodies like she was trying to be us again. I sat across from her, watching the way she twisted her fork, and I wanted so badly to believe that I was wrong, that I'd built a mountain out of nothing. But then she mentioned her upcoming girls' trip in 2 weeks, something I'd forgotten about until that moment, and my stomach tightened again. You still going with Rebecca and Mia? I asked, keeping my voice casual. She nodded. Yeah, we booked the Airbnb already. It's this cute place by the lake, kind of rustic chic. Nice. What's the plan? She shrugged. Wine, hikes, spa day if we can find a decent one. You know, recharge. We've all been burning out lately. That made sense. And yet it didn't. Because Mia texted me last month about Jenna's birthday gift. And when I mentioned the trip, she said, wait, what trip? I didn't press. I just nodded and changed the topic. But in that moment, something shifted in me. That quiet doubt became certainty. I knew I had to stop hoping she'd hand me the truth. I had to start looking for it myself. And that's when I crossed a line I never thought I would. Later that night, while Jenna was brushing her teeth, I sat in bed pretending to scroll on my phone. But I wasn't scrolling. I was watching her reflection in the mirror, trying to study her face, every blink, every tiny twitch of hesitation. When she went to the guest room closet to grab a pair of slippers, I took the chance to open her bag again. The velvet box was still there. But this time, it wasn't just the card that got me. It was the return slip underneath it. Neiman Marcus. Item purchased in-store. Not online. Purchased 4 days ago. The day she said she had back-to-back workshops in Houston. But the location? Atlanta. Again. My hands went cold. I didn't have answers. Not yet. But I had enough to know this wasn't just paranoia. Something was happening. Something that wasn't meant for me to find. And I knew deep down that this wasn't going to resolve itself with one teary apology or a quiet weekend at home. This was a thread I'd need to pull. And I had no idea what I'd unravel once I did. By Saturday morning, I was done pretending. I'd spent the past 3 days living in 2 realities. One where I was the trusting husband who believed every word his wife said, and one where I was quietly unraveling a web of lies, string by string. I played my part well, laughed at her jokes, kissed her goodbye, even texted her in the middle of the day like things were fine. But inside, I was building a case. Friday night, she told me she had a client dinner downtown. Real estate networking, apparently. Said it was with a couple from out of town looking to relocate. She tossed out details like they were candy. They want a 4-bedroom in Brookhaven, he works in tech, she's pregnant, as if the more she layered the story, the more believable it would become. I nodded like I bought it. But the truth is I had already called her office earlier that day under the guise of confirming an appointment. Her manager, Lori, mentioned offhand that Jenna was off this weekend and probably heading out of town with friends. So that was it. The client dinner was a lie. Which meant I had one choice. Stop guessing. Find out. She got ready around 6. Wore a navy blue dress I hadn't seen before. Her makeup was flawless, more effort than usual. Perfume, heels, a fresh blowout. She kissed me goodbye like it was nothing. Don't wait up, she said, grabbing her purse. I won't, I lied. I gave her a 10-minute head start, then ordered a cab and followed her. I didn't know where she was going exactly, but I had a gut feeling. There's this modern bistro-style restaurant downtown called Leona's, dim lighting, jazz on Saturdays, not exactly a place you go to talk escrow and square footage. When the cab pulled up half a block away, I asked the driver to keep it running. I stepped out slowly and scanned the sidewalk, trying not to look like someone about to confront his wife's affair. And then I saw her. She was inside, seated at a window table near the front. With him. They were already 2 glasses into a bottle of wine. I could tell by the bottle placement and how close their chairs were angled. His hand was resting on the table, fingers barely grazing hers. She didn't pull away. They weren't just chatting. They were laughing. He leaned in, whispered something in her ear, and she smiled, the kind of smile I hadn't seen on her face in months. I pulled out my phone and took 3 photos. Wide angle. Close up. Then one with a timestamp from the outside, clearly showing the name of the restaurant. It didn't feel good. It didn't even feel real. But it felt necessary. I stayed across the street, leaning against a lamppost hidden enough to avoid notice. 30 minutes passed. They stood, she adjusted his tie, and he placed his hand on the small of her back as they exited the restaurant. She looked comfortable. Too comfortable. They didn't go to a hotel, at least not right away. That would have been almost too clean, too obvious. Instead, they crossed the street. Straight into her office building. It was nearly 8 p.m. on a Saturday. The lights were off on most of the floors, but the lobby doors unlocked with her badge. He followed behind like he'd done it before. That's when the nausea hit. Not because of what they might be doing, but because I realized she had taken him to her space. Not a random hotel or anonymous Airbnb, but her office. Her name was on the wall. Her framed hedge *T hung near reception. She brought him into her world. And for some reason, that part hurt worse. I didn't follow them in. I didn't need to. I had enough. I sat in the cab on the way back home, silent. The driver didn't ask questions. He didn't have to. I probably looked like a man who just watched his life collapse through a pane of glass. At home, I poured a glass of water, sat at the kitchen counter, and stared at the door. The same door she'd walked through in a few hours, pretending she'd spent the evening talking square footage with some nice suburban couple. I kept picturing her expression, wondering if she'd look guilty, nervous, or if she'd already rehearsed her alibi down to the last word. But the thing is, I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was still. Like the moment before a storm breaks. I spent the rest of the evening copying the photos to a private drive. I even recorded a voice memo just for myself, describing the night's events. I knew I'd need every detail clear when the moment came to confront her. And part of me really hoped I was wrong. That maybe this man was just an old friend. That maybe I'd misread something. But deep down I knew. And it wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated. When she got home close to midnight, I was already in bed. I kept the lights off and pretended to be asleep. She slipped in quietly, set her purse down gently, and tiptoed around the room like a teenager sneaking past curfew. She didn't say a word. Didn't crawl into bed beside me. Didn't try to kiss me goodnight. She went straight to the guest room. And that was all the confirmation I needed. She thought she was good at hiding. And to her credit, she was for a while. But the thing about lies is they leak. Little drips of inconsistency, strange timing, unexplained smiles, offhand comments that don't quite match up. And if you're paying attention, really paying attention, they start to pool at your feet. By Sunday morning, I wasn't looking for answers anymore. I already had them. Now, I needed proof. I got up before she did. Made coffee. Sat in the dining room and stared at the same table where we used to host game nights with friends and plan vacations we never took. The sunlight poured through the windows like any normal day, but nothing felt normal anymore. She came downstairs eventually, hair tied up, robe on, eyes still puffy from sleep or something like it. She didn't look at me as she grabbed a cup from the cabinet. "Morning," she said, voice flat. "Morning," I replied. No kiss. No smile. Just routine. She went to the living room, curled up on the couch, and started scrolling on her phone. I watched her out of the corner of my eye, wondering if she was texting him. Brandon. I didn't know his last name yet, but I'd soon find out. When she finally went out for her yoga class around 10, I made my move. I went straight to her laptop. It wasn't even locked. Her password was still the same, our dog's name and her birth year. I guess she never thought I'd have a reason to look. At first, it was the usual clutter, email newsletters, recipe bookmarks, real estate listings. But then I clicked into her cloud storage. And there he was. Brandon. Hundreds of messages, voice notes, photos. The cloud had it all. She hadn't bothered to turn off syncing, which meant I had access to months of conversations. Some of it was mundane jokes, gifs, stories about her coworkers. But then it shifted. Late-night messages. "I miss you already. Wish you were here instead." He's still clueless. And photos. One of them standing together in front of a fountain downtown. Another of her in a hotel mirror wearing the same dress I watched her leave the house in Friday night. The caption underneath read, "For your eyes only." But the worst? A shared spreadsheet labeled FH budget. FH. Future home. I opened it with shaking hands. It was color-coded with estimated expenses, projected down payments, even furniture costs. My name was listed next to a line item labeled equity contribution. Apparently, I was financing their new life. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just went quiet inside. That's what betrayal feels like. Not an explosion. A vacuum. I downloaded everything. Every message, every file. I screen recorded the worst ones just in case. I emailed them to a secure folder and then backed them up to an external drive. Then I made a new folder. Labeled it Jenna, Other Life. I organized everything by category, messages, photos, audio, travel. I even found the itinerary for that Houston conference. Guess where she actually was that first night? Atlanta. The hotel receipt was there, plain as day, in the confirmation email. A suite. King bed. Room service at 1:15 a.m. That afternoon, I installed a password-protected archive and copied the whole thing to a flash drive, which I stored in the hollowed-out book on the top shelf of our bedroom closet. The same one Jenna bought as a joke from some novelty store for hiding my chocolate, she used to say. Now it hid the truth. By evening I felt ready. Not good. Not vindicated. Just prepared. I knew if I confronted her in anger it would spiral. She'd deny it, cry, twist the narrative. She might even accuse me of invading her privacy. So I decided not to confront her yet. I wanted to trap the lie. I wanted to watch it squirm. So I invited her to dinner. Our anniversary's next week, I said, around 5. Let's celebrate early. Just us. She blinked, clearly caught off guard. You want to do something? Tonight? I smiled. Yeah. Let's stay in. I'll cook. She hesitated. Probably wanted to say she had plans. But she agreed. Okay, she said. That sounds nice. I grilled steak. Opened wine. Lit candles. Played music from the playlist we made during our second year of marriage. Nostalgia on demand. I watched her settle into it, watched the tension leave her shoulders, the guilt fade behind practiced smiles. After dinner, she offered to help with dishes. No, don't worry, I said. Just go relax. While she was in the living room, I set the stage. Laptop open on the dining table. Flash drive plugged in. Documents queued up. A folder labeled Open Me. Inside, I placed 4 files. A PDF of the hotel invoice. A video screen recording of their chat thread. A voice memo of her saying it'll all be finalized soon. He suspects nothing. And the spreadsheet Future Home. Then I placed a physical folder next to the laptop filled with printed screensh *TS and receipts. Everything was ready. I called her in. Hey, Jen. Can you come here? She walked in slowly, holding her wine glass. Yeah? She stopped when she saw the table. Her eyes flicked to the screen. The folder. The flash drive. She froze. What is this? She asked, her voice quiet. I didn't raise mine. Your other life. She didn't speak. Just stared. I clicked play on the voice memo. Her voice came through the speakers. It'll all be finalized soon. He suspects nothing. She sat down. Hard. Her hand shook as she set the wine glass down. Mark, don't, I said. Let me finish. I pointed at the folder. Texts. Receipts. Hotel records. A budget. You weren't just sneaking around. You were building a future. Using my name. My money. She looked like she wanted to cry, but I didn't care anymore. How long? I asked. She swallowed. It wasn't supposed to be like this. But it was, I said. Because you made it like this. For the first time, she looked ashamed. Not guilty. Ashamed. Then she said the thing I expected but still wasn't ready for. So, you were spying on me? No, I replied calmly. I just watched. And listened. You did the rest. She looked down. The silence stretched. I stood up. I'm going to bed. You can sleep wherever you want tonight. She didn't argue. She just sat there, staring at the truth. She didn't sleep in our bed that night. I heard her walking around downstairs until almost 3 a.m., floorboards creaking, cabinets opening and closing. At one point, she stood outside the bedroom door for a full minute. I could hear her breathing. I didn't say a word. Neither did she. By morning, the house felt hollow. Like the truth had vacuumed out whatever warmth used to live in these walls. I came downstairs to find her already awake, sitting at the kitchen table, same clothes from last night, eyes swollen. Her phone was on the table, face down. She didn't reach for it once. Can we talk? She asked softly. I sat across from her. No coffee. No good morning. She looked like she'd been rehearsing. Mark, she started. I know what you saw, what you read, it looks Don't, I said. Don't tell me it looks like anything. Just tell the truth. She looked at her hands like they were foreign objects. I didn't mean for it to go this far. That's not an answer. She swallowed. It started last summer. The retreat in Asheville. Brandon was there giving a keynote. We used to work together years ago. He was someone I respected. Admired. I clenched my jaw. Said nothing. We had drinks after the panel. Talked. That's all it was at first. Catching up. And then. She hesitated. And then it became something else. How long have you been lying to me? She winced like the words physically hit her. About 6 months. I nodded. That tracked. Right around when she stopped laughing at my jokes. When she started pulling away without physically stepping back. Were you ever going to tell me? I didn't know how. I leaned back. So you planned a whole life with him instead? Tears welled in her eyes. It wasn't like that. We talked about things, hypotheticals. What it would look like if it. If what? I asked. If I disappeared? No, she said quickly. If things ended between us. I wasn't using you, Mark. I never. The budget document said otherwise. She looked down. Silent. Were you going to leave me after the mortgage switch? I asked. After you got everything lined up under your name? Her voice dropped to a whisper. It wasn't like that. But it was, I said. You didn't cheat and then feel guilty. You cheated and planned. That's the part you don't understand. She tried again. Can I explain how it happened, how we got here? Please. You already did. Through your messages. Your voice notes. You laid it out step by step. She shifted in her seat. Okay, but I didn't expect to fall for him. That hit me harder than I thought it would. Not because she loved someone else, but because of how casually she said it. Like she tripped into it. I loved you, I said quietly. I know, she said. And I loved you too, eh? Don't, I cut her off. Don't throw that word around. You don't destroy people you love. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did. She looked up at me, eyes glassy. So what now? You want a divorce? I already spoke to a lawyer. She blinked. You, what? Everything's ready to file. I froze the joint account. Cancelled your access. You'll get a letter this week. For a second, she just stared at me like she didn't recognize the person across the table. You really did all that? I did, I said. You made plans. So I made mine. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. God, Mark. I was scared. I didn't know how to fix things. You didn't try. I thought I had time. I laughed low and humorless. Time for what? A graceful exit? No. Time to figure out if I was making a mistake. Was he worth it? I asked, staring straight at her. She didn't answer right away. Then she said the most honest thing she'd said all morning. I don't know. I stood. That was enough. She stood too, quickly, like she didn't want the conversation to end there. Wait, Mark, please. I want to make this right. You can't. I'll stop seeing him. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes. It's not about what you do now, I said. It's about everything you already did. Her face crumpled. I didn't yell. I didn't slam anything. I just walked over to the hallway closet, pulled out the small suitcase she'd used for weekend trips, and set it by the stairs. I'll be staying at a friend's for a few days, I said. By the time I'm back, I want you gone. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I walked past her, up the stairs, and into the bedroom. I packed a duffel bag. Not because I was leaving forever, but because I needed space. Because I couldn't sleep in the same house where she whispered to another man that she was almost free. As I zipped the bag shut, I spotted a framed photo on the dresser, us on the beach 3 years ago, laughing, holding hands, sunlight everywhere. It felt like a different life. I turned it face down. That evening, I stayed at my friend Nate's place. He didn't ask questions. Just handed me a beer and said, guest room's yours. Doors open. I lay awake for hours. Not crying. Not thinking. Just empty. But in that emptiness, a strange clarity settled in. This was it. No more what-ifs. No more waiting. No more lies. Tomorrow, I'd move forward. Alone, maybe? But finally honest. She was gone by Thursday. Didn't even wait for me to come home. Just sent a text that said I left the keys on the counter. I'm sorry. That was it. No long email. No last-minute declaration. Just a message as empty as the house I walked into. I checked the guest room, her stuff was gone. The closet? Half empty. I half expected her scent to linger, but it was already fading, like it wanted to leave faster than she did. I locked the front door, double-checked the bank accounts, and called my lawyer to give the green light. He filed everything the next morning. The evidence folder, chat logs, financial documents, the voice recordings spoke louder than I ever could. A week later, Brandon reached out. Email. No subject line. Just, I didn't know you and Jenna were still married. I thought it was over. I didn't respond. What was there to say? Congratulations? The legal side moved fast. Quicker than I expected. My assets were protected. Turns out planning everything in writing works against you when it's used in court. The mortgage, the savings, even the cabin we'd been remodeling? All staying with me. She didn't fight. Maybe she knew she'd already lost more than property. I packed up what I needed, sold the house, and moved to Nashville. New firm. New apartment. Same me but lighter somehow. Not better yet. Not healed. But free. A year later, I met Emily. Not the Emily from Once Upon a Time, but someone new. She was a psychology professor, soft-spoken, bright, with eyes that saw too much but never judged. We met at a bookstore during a rainstorm. I made a joke about hiding from life between the shelves. She said some books are better than reality anyway. That turned into coffee. Then long walks. Then comfort I didn't realize I was still allowed to feel. One night, sitting on the balcony, I told her the story, Jenna, Brandon, everything. I didn't dramatize it. Didn't make myself the hero. Just told it. Emily didn't interrupt.